So, hey, John, thanks so much for coming here. So, we've kind of finished the whole sequence of classes we were doing, building up through the topic of leadership, but I wanted to kind of circle back and kind of circle forward, or whatever's the opposite of that, looking at what is meditation, and really more about what is meditation, what are the types of meditation, what does it mean to engage in meditation, how do we build that up, and touch on all those topics that are, of course, top of mind for most people who are thinking about these kinds of things. It's a big subject. The meditation that we do typically to begin the class here, just a basic breathing meditation, settling our mind, is kind of a common standard meditation, but there's a lot of different kinds. So this is like a standard sample meditation. It's not the only kind. And so I think what we'll do later is to just talk about the full range. But let me start with the definition of meditation. So meditation is, as it was explained to me, meditation is a method of familiarizing our mind, meaning getting more familiar with, getting more acquainted with, or building habits around what's called a virtuous object. And a virtuous object is just something that when you focus on it makes your mind more peaceful. So really it's building habits of directing the mind towards, in a way that builds inner peace. And meditation is the main cause of experiencing inner peace. So everything about meditation is centered around this becoming more peaceful. And so it's that subjective inner experience of becoming more peaceful. But how do you do that? It's actually quite open. There's a lot of ways to become more peaceful. What's the purpose? What are the benefits of that? There's actually a lot of benefits. There's a lot of purposes that come out of that. If we think that's very simple definition, building our inner peace, short-term and long-term habits of building inner peace, learning to work with our attention and mind. What are the implications of inner peace? What comes out of that is a lot of different things. Think about it like if you're growing plants, it's like preparing the soil, preparing the right soil. What grows out of preparing the right soil? A whole lot of stuff. You got flowers, you got plants, you got food, you got... and so meditation is very, very fundamental in that sense, but the soil of meditation, the ground and the real focus, that is inner peace. And which means, if you're looking for a definition of that, inner peace is the opposite of mental disturbance. And so sometimes the analogy of a tranquil lake, as opposed to a lake with a lot of ripples in it, gradually the water settles. Water has a tendency to settle and become undisturbed. So that's the main characteristic. The meditation we'll do now is this classic standard meditation of becoming more aware of our body. And there's a number of reasons why this is useful. One of them is it helps to, it gives us something physical, concrete to focus on. It's simple to understand, simple to explain, but it also is the opposite of some of the mental chatter. It means beginning to edge away or inch away from some of the mental chatter into a place of more silence and stillness. Not fully necessarily at all, but in that direction. Okay, so we can close our eyes, and this is really just a way to reduce distractions. We can meditate with our eyes open, eyes closed, as we wish, or half open. And we sit straight, and really that's just to keep our mind awake and alert and prevent the distraction and dullness. We just start with a deep breath in and out, and this is our reset button, just resetting. Stretch your neck if that helps, stretch your shoulders. Take another deep breath in and out, resetting our body from the inside. And then we can invite our body to relax. As our body relaxes, our mind can relax a bit, beginning to let go of some of our distractions from the day. Breathing in and out again, just asking ourselves, what is important now? And even just a couple of steps towards a greater state of inner peace, we're already meditating. We're already moving in that direction. But to keep going in that direction, we just become aware of our body, how it feels. Are there areas of comfort or discomfort? What's the experience or feeling coming in from our body? Feel our face, our neck, our shoulders, chest, back, arms, hands, butt, legs, feet. And we feel with every breath there's some tiny, tiny change in the feeling. Every time we breathe, some slight change in the feeling in our body. Normally we don't pay attention to our body. Now we can just become interested, just become curious. What's it feel like to be me now? What's it feel like to have this body? Our intelligence is not just in our head. Our whole body has some intelligence. What's it telling us? And then we can set an intention for the time that we have here. Just asking, what is the best result for myself or others that could come out of this time together? What good result can I direct my intention towards? And then we can open our eyes and rise from our meditation. Recently, I was looking at some writing about learning and how we learn, and there was a guy who likes to draw his presentations by hand. Whenever he does a presentation, he draws it by hand. He's not a great artist, actually, but he just does it. He just likes to do it. And he said, he goes to elementary schools sometimes, kindergarten. He asks all these 6-year-olds, who here can draw? Every 6-year-old puts their hands up, right? And he goes to graduate school, and he says to these graduate students, who here can draw? And almost nobody puts their hand up. So he's like, what on earth is the matter with our education system that we go from having 6-year-olds who can draw to having 23-year-olds with higher degrees who can't draw? What's that about, right? And I feel like I should try this experiment, but I feel like if I went and asked a bunch of 6-year-olds, who here can meditate? I bet that we'd get a whole lot of hands raised up. Maybe we give a 5-minute explanation of meditation. So then who here just meditated? Who here can meditate? And it got all the hands going up. And then you ask a bunch of adults, who here can meditate? And everybody's like, oh, I tried once. I'm too busy. I'm too, I can do it after yoga class maybe, but not at other times, or, with an app or something like that. But there's something very, when we first started this meditation, we took 3 breaths together, just breathing, just resetting, just relaxing, and so forth. Is that a meditation? And then we went on from there and took like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and so forth, and spent a longer time. So is that a meditation? Did we meditate? I didn't ask, did you experience overwhelming ecstasy? Did you have a mind-blowing experience? No. But, is it meditation? Is it? So the word delegitimize comes to mind. Like, we can delegitimize our own experiences of inner peace. Like, who has experiences of inner peace? Every single person in the whole universe has experiences of inner peace. At the very least, when you go to sleep. Right. I remember sometime back when I remember hearing somebody describe their young child, as like some demon monkey monster when they were awake, but they were an angel when they were asleep. Right? So we all go through these phases, but at least when they're asleep, right? So inner peace is something that's utterly innate to us, because we're basically oscillating between greater and lesser peace all the time. The only reason we know that we even have some aspiration to meditate is because we know that there are more and less peaceful states of mind. And what happens, my first meditation teacher used to talk about all these billboards that sell insurance, so you can get peace of mind. You want peace of mind? Allstate, right? But I don't think anybody really gets peace of mind from insurance, right? You get peace of mind through changing the way you think through meditations. Meditations, the function of meditation is to build inner peace. That's what it does. It's just, and the traditional word, at least in the Tibetan language, is gom, which means familiarization. And if you think about familiarization, it means family, like home, just becoming like family, at home with something. Familiarizing yourself with something just means building it as a habit. And there's this expression neurologists use, that neurons that fire together wire together. That all of our mental neuroplasticity, the brain change that happens, is all towards making the things that we do more easy, more habitual. So whatever you do naturally becomes easier with time because you build habits. That's just how your brain does it. Good habits, bad habits, doesn't matter, but that's the way your brain works. It makes things easier. You do something a bunch, it gets easier. So if you spend, 30 seconds, 1 minute building some inner peace, your mind gets a little bit better at it. You can start doing your 1 minute meditations a bit more easily. You can sprinkle a few in between, at the start of a meeting, at the start of a meal. There's a lot of religious traditions, they pray at the beginning of a meal. Whether you pray or not, it's kind of up to you, but at the very least, you should stop. Mealtime is such a good time to stop and just decompress. Oh, I always feel like I need to decompress before I'm sitting down to a meal. Just sit down, you've been busy, and you're just like, okay. It actually feels better, to me at least, it feels better to just decompress than it does to just eat. Decompressing is its own reward. What's that word even mean? It's almost the same as meditation, it's decompressing, right? So, but we often tend to we build these associations, a glass of wine at the end of the day, or sitting down to watch TV. But a lot of these things, they're really ways of dealing with our own mind. They're ways of, you could say, well, they're ways of learning how to make our mind more peaceful. We feel more peaceful if we take a walk. We feel more peaceful if we, go out and see our friends, or we pet the dog, or whatever. But what we're really trying to do with a lot of the things we do every day, a lot of the rituals we've already figured out in our life, what we're really trying to do is just make our mind more peaceful. Just chill out, calm down, decompress, relax. And why? Because when we're relaxed, we're happy. When we're peaceful, we're happy. And so sometimes we feel like we have to go through these elaborate rituals to decompress. Oh, I've got to go on vacation I live in San Diego, right? So most people in the world, if they want to go on vacation, they come to San Diego. People in San Diego, if you want to go to vacation, well, you got to go to Hawaii. That's apparently the place you go on vacation if you live in San Diego. So you got to save up all your money so you can go to Hawaii if you can. But all of those are just like these elaborate rituals. It's actually an enormous pain in the butt to pack your stuff, get on a plane, schlep your stuff to a hotel, and it's not quite right, and it's just all this trouble, right? Skip all the trouble and just chill out where you are, right? Skip the alcohol, skip the trouble, skip all the expense, and just take a minute to just chill out. Imagining you're sitting at a beach, if that is your thing. Imagining you're walking in a forest. All of those are basically, they're poor man's vacation. And well, actually, there's a long history of meditators being very poor men. so they just learn this poor man's vacation, right? They can't. But really, it's something. It's an indispensable life skill that we all need to develop. It's like reading, writing, arithmetic, meditation, learning to draw. It's just a basic life skill. That's not some weird esoteric thing. Although not all cultures value it deeply. And now what we've experienced over the last 50 years or whatever in the US is gradually some infusion from other cultures that value inner peace, that explicitly value inner peace. Some Christian religious traditions also do that. They value prayer, and so forth. But there are, in fact, these very, very rich rivers, right? Deep streams of practice about how to build inner peace from a lot of these ancient wisdom traditions, and they're kind of flowing into the modern world, and that's a wonderful thing, but none of them are really alien to our innate state. They're just basically taking these natural states of mind like inner peace and amplifying them. That's all it is, amplifying. It's like the way even illiterate people have the ability to do logical reasoning, of course, and remember things, of course. But, if you learn literacy and you learn math and so forth, it enhances our natural ability to reason and remember and so forth. So we just need to enhance our natural ability to build inner peace. Earlier, we were chatting about a couple of these questions, from going, I loved the way you framed it, the progression in meditation from being dependent on somebody else or an app to guide us through meditation, to becoming independent, to being able to meditate on our own, to becoming interdependent, which is quite a profound word. But I love the way you framed it as like being able to teach other people. In a sense, you're actually guiding them through meditation. You're trying to using your own experience to help other people to navigate and tap into that world, which is quite a rich state where there's many people trying to move through that space of peace together. So it has to start with recognizing how much familiarity we already have with inner peace, that we already have a lot of familiarity. We already have had a lot of states and experiences in our life where we felt really peaceful. Those are our experiences. Those are innate. They're natural to your mind. Every night when you go to sleep, you access the deepest levels of concentration possible. Every night. You just cycle through deep concentration just naturally, effortlessly, right? It's effortless. You just do it. So, what we don't want to do is get ourselves too tied in knots, thinking that meditation is something really esoteric and obscure and difficult and only certain people can do it. So first of all, just normalize inner peace. It's ours, it's innate, it's like our ability to draw and so forth. Second of all, celebrate inner peace. I think that's the real key. It's like when we have some experience where we don't freak out or we enjoy a minute and so forth, celebrate it. And I started off this series of classes talking about, I think it's James Clear is his name, talking about atomic habits. And I'm mixing two different teachers about how to build habits, but one of them really emphasized celebrating. Just like when you do something that is moving in the right direction, celebrate internally. Just really enjoy, just savor it. The way you would enjoy, well, the way we would encourage a child, the way we celebrate a win at work or playing a video game, all of those things are celebrations, right? So we know how to, so normalize inner peace, celebrate inner peace. Make space, make a little bit of space, before we sit down for a meal, after a difficult meeting, before a difficult meeting, whatever, just give ourselves these 1 minute breaks and then build that maybe a 5-minute break or have some, basically take the thin end of the wedge and gently create places in our life where we can inject a bit more meditation. The dependent approach to it, listening to teachings like this, listening to apps like Headspace and Calm and so forth, or other reading books on meditation and so forth, all of those are very, very helpful because they they give us some intellectual orientation to what's going on and how to navigate. They give us some more role models to admire, right? And so that's really powerful to have people that we admire who meditate. And so you can find like lots of famous celebrities and business leaders or whoever. There's a lot of, notable people, but also, friends who meditate and so forth. So all of that helps. And even when you're reading, if you're reading something, that can be a meditation, right? If you're reading something as spiritual or inspiring or something, those I like calling those readitations. But if you just savor it, then you are meditating, right? Because you're intentionally deepening your inner peace. You're intentionally not rushing through. You're getting a little taste, a little insight, and you're savoring it. And that is intentionally building inner peace. And with that intentionally building inner peace, we are gradually, subtly reshaping our mind, reshaping the way we think, so that more and more and more inner peace can become our default. And that leads us into being able to meditate independently, those small steps and so forth. And more as meditation is our default, or as inner peace is our default, then we indirectly begin to influence the people around us simply by not freaking out and not panicking in difficult situations. And so that's one of the main qualities of a leader, or really anybody, is who's a good influence in a situation, is that they're not panicking. You might be panicking, but they're calm. That's peace, right? Calmness is peace. They're calm in a difficult situation. That influences people, and people want to be like that person, right? They want to be cool under pressure. They want to be able to be a public speaker who's got confidence and so forth, or they want to be able to be in a dangerous situation and not freak out. So, and then, the only thing that's distinctive about what I'm doing here, giving meditation classes, is that I'm just putting it to words, right? So I've got a bit of vocabulary, so you kind of learn the vocabulary, and that's where there's that natural transition from receiving the vocabulary to transmitting the vocabulary, and the confidence, right? And some breadth of experience, and all of that just comes naturally. Just think about any of the things that we're confident in doing. Like, could we teach somebody how to drive? Yeah, we're not a driver's ed instructor, but we could teach somebody how to drive. Brake, don't. Did you see that sign? So that's some natural progression. There's a huge range of different kinds of meditations, and that's why it's a little bit tricky to pin down exactly what it is, aside from pointing to inner peace. But one distinction that I find really useful is in the Buddhist tradition, we used to talk a lot about body, speech, and mind. Now, the terms are a little bit clear and a little bit misleading, actually, but body, speech, and mind. So I like that way of framing thinking about meditation. So body literally just means we've got this physical part of ourselves. And we have a physical body, but it's interesting. There's a lot to our body, but we'll put a placeholder there for a second. Speech. Speech means, of course, what's actually vocalized. But what people experience when they sit down to meditate is actually speech energy, just continuing the conversation. We shut our mouth and we put our hands in this posture and we close our eyes, but the mental chatter keeps going. That's speech energy. That's actually speech. It's the same, that mental chatter is that same speech energy. It's just internalized. And so the logical thinking that we do, all the reading and the talking and the reasoning and a lot of that, all of that's just speech energy. What's most important to know is that is just one relatively small part of our mind, of our mental capability, that there's a huge range of intelligence, there's a huge range of awareness that's not that speech energy. And so this big focus, if you think about this classic like Zen, you just sit, you face a wall, no talking, stop thinking, this classic like Shh, the librarian meditation, right? This just try to create some quiet, some calm. What are you doing? You're quieting or silencing that speech energy in your head. But it doesn't mean that your mind stops. It's just that part of your mind stops. That speech part of your mind stops or slows down. What's left? What's left is what in this context is called the mind, right? The mind in this Buddhist body, speech, mind distinction. The mind there is just the mind that is aware, observing. And I love these analogies about if you think of a word like boo, imagine freezing that word as you think of it, and what's there just before it's coming into existence, or what's there just as it's going out of existence. Like what's at that threshold, right? There is something that is underlying that thought. There's some space, basically. It's just some space, it's the stage on which our thoughts unfold. It's the room, it's the mental space or room in which the mental chatter unfolds, and the chatter dies down, the room is still there, the space is still there. That's the mind, that underlying awareness. Circling back around, though, to the body, not only does the body refer to physical things, it also refers to this distributed intelligence that's through our body. Our body has enormous intelligence. So explain to me precisely how you digest food. And now this is thematic, right? Because the end of November and I'm sporting this beard. Let me explain to you exactly how I grow hair. All right, I just reached the limits of my ability to explain. I have no idea how I grow hair. The body has its own intelligence. Every cell in the body is keeping itself alive through some insanely complex process that even the greatest scientists in the world are only beginning to understand. So there's this incredible distributed intelligence throughout our whole body. Right now, I can feel my feet, I can feel my hands. That's part of our intelligence, and we need to own that intelligence. We may not be a world-class athlete, but we still have this, bodily awareness. Ask these 6-year-olds, how many of you have a bodily awareness? Everybody does, and that's ours, right? It's part of this natural intelligence, a huge spectrum of intelligence. It's like the spectrum of light versus visible light. Visible light is this, but then there's all this infrared and ultraviolet and X-rays and gamma rays. The whole spectrum of light is a huge spectrum of intelligence, including this bodily intelligence. And what's interesting about this bodily intelligence is it's decentralized. It's like there's no one ego voice saying, me, I'm in charge, I'm in control. And so when you begin to become aware of your body and this breathing and so forth, you begin to recognize that there's this distributed awareness. There's this flow of information coming in through our body. And there's this, not just information, there's some intelligence in our body. Our body knows how to breathe and knows how to beat its heart, knows how to digest food. What is that? What is that intelligence? Tapping into that is really meant to give a bit of humility, to help us recognize we were never in control. And I love this parallel between the CEO of an organization and the ego self person that we think we are relative to our body. The CEO of a corporation probably knows precious little about what's actually happening in their organization. All they know are some summaries that were given by their executive team, right, around them. But the executive team probably knows precious little about what's actually going on their team. All they know are some summaries, like some line items, action items, this and that. And for any kind of complex organization, there's so much, vastly more going on in the organization than any one individual could possibly take in. But still, there's CEO, there's somebody with kind of an executive function, Like, okay, there needs to be some kind of organization, some kind of direction, right? And our ego or our sense of self gives us some kind of orientation, some kind of direction, allows us to make decisions, and we choose things and so forth. But we need the humility to recognize there's so much going on inside our body. And so that's what this meditation, just bodily awareness, is tapping into that distributed intelligence. And so you'd ask this question about goal setting, like using meditation for like goal setting versus using meditation to just be, for example. And I like that distinction, that our self does stuff and gets stuff done to it. That's what our self does. Our self does stuff and has stuff done to it. So it's a doer and a being done to thing. And the entire picture of ourself is all about doing and being done to. That's the whole story. And all of our stories are, I'm going to do this, and this happened to me, and they did this. And so it's all like my mentor, Don Finn, likes to say, it's all this drama triangle: victims, villains, and heroes. Victims, somebody's doing stuff to them. Heroes are doing stuff that's helping people, and villains are doing stuff that's hurting people. And victims are, always having stuff done to them. So we always, but that's what's going on with our sense of self. But we can use this inner peace, we can use this quiet to imagine rehearsing. You were mentioning people, athletes who rehearse scenarios where they're catching a difficult pass, or shooting a free throw, or these kinds of things, sports visualizations. Certainly we can do these kinds of things. We can imagine being a stronger person, a better person, kinder person, whatever the qualities we want to bring out. We can use the quiet space that meditation creates to cultivate qualities. And that's why it's like a garden, right? You can grow plants, you can grow flowers, you can grow vegetables to eat, you can grow flowers. You can use that land for anything you want, that ground of inner peace. You can grow whatever you want. And in practice, there's probably a lot of things we want to do. But the last thing we ever think of doing is not doing, or undoing, or unlearning. That's kind of the last thing our self ever thinks of, because the self is always oriented towards doing and what people have done to me. But stopping doing opens the door to stopping. There doesn't even need to be a self, right? You can just kind of be, and you can relax that sense of self and become more aware of that body, which is that distributed intelligence. For example, the body's probably the easiest, nicest, most straightforward way to relax that sense of self and just become aware of that body. I remember one of our teachers, my wife and my teacher, he talks about just walking in the forest where he lives, and just being aware of all the colors, and the smell of the forest, and the crunch of the pine needles under his feet. And he just says, why do I need a self to enjoy that? Why do I need a self to experience that? So there's a way of experiencing where there's not really much self involved, let alone a self that's threatened, let alone a self that's stressed, let alone a self that's victimized, let alone a self that's bullying, let alone a self that's addicted or out of control. So the pathologies that we build up, they're normally around the self. There's all this like pathologies around the self, like they did this to me, and I'm going to do this, or I can't do this, and I can't stop doing this. But all of this is centered around the self. So if you disappear that self, or you relax it, you make it go away a little bit, all of those pathologies, they go away too. And the biggest pathology that we experience on a daily basis is just, well, one of the biggest ones at least is just being stressed, just figuring out what to do, how to get by, how to deal with the people around us. And this sense of fight or flight, this stress response is very focused around, there's a strong self there. I've got to get away. I've got to get back. I've got to get back at them, etc. Okay. So that's probably a little bit long, but some thoughts on the variety and the breadth of meditation. Yeah. So why don't we take a bit of time now just to settle in with some final meditation, just letting this settle in and absorb. And I'll go back to that body, speech, and mind thing, and guide us through that same thought process that I talked through before. So again, we find a comfortable position for meditation. Just breathe and just reset. There's a close tie between our body and mind. Deep breath in and out, and just invite ourselves to relax. We begin by becoming aware of our body, but know that our body has an intelligence. It's not just a physical thing. It feels, it experiences. We become verbally quiet, but maybe there's still some speech, some talking to ourselves in our head. Gradually, maybe that quiets down. And as the talking in our head begins to quiet down, what's the space that's left behind? What's the space of awareness left behind when all the chatter subsides? We just try to recognize these three elements. Where's our body and its intelligence? How active or quiet is the speech energy? And what is the mind or awareness that's left behind? And even in this short time that we've been here, meditating, contemplating these subjects, our mind has changed. Our brain has changed. We've laid down new pathways, strengthened internal connections, built tiny, tiny seeds of habits and deep change. And we can ask ourselves, how would we like to see this inner change unfold for ourselves and others in future? What could these seeds turn into? Then we can open our eyes and arise from meditation.